Good day, everybody. My name is Dr. Francois Tessier. I'm the CEO of the Center for Complementary Therapy and Pain Management in Sri Lanka. And welcome to this series of Zoom interview where we discover the most amazing doctors and therapists participating in complementary therapies worldwide. And today we have a very special guest. We have Dr. Cairo Rocha from the Bahama Therapeutic Institute. Dr. Cairo has been teaching and practicing acupuncture and correlated natural healing therapies for so many years. He holds a Ph.D. in natural science from the University of New Mexico and a doctorate degree of Oriental Medicine from the Tokyo Acupuncture, Moxibustion and Jusei College in Japan. Dr. Cairo has traveled extensively and studied in Germany, in France, in the UK, in the USA, everywhere in the world. Dr. Cairo is also an author of a book called Anger Goes Up, Fears Go Down, Emotion and the Hidden Link. Dr. Cairo frequently asked to present workshops and conferences on health and healing in the Bahamas and all around the world. Actually, Dr. Cairo is currently in a private practice in the Palm Therapeutic Center in Nassau, Bahamas. Well, Dr. Cairo, thank you for accepting my invitation. Welcome and thank you for being with us, sharing your knowledge and therapeutic approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Francois. It's a really pleasure to be with you. And I thank you very much for creating this beautiful space where like-minded people can get together.
Yeah, we want to inspire people, right? That's our goal. All right, so Dr. Cairo, your introduction is quite short compared to the extent of your journey. So you have an extensive background, you practice acupuncture, you also practice FENG SHUI. I think that you started your career with doing acupressure. You are extensively using essential oils. You treat the body, you treat the emotion. That's a lot. So tell me a little bit of your history and mainly how you came to this, how you came to healing. How did it start? Tell us your story, doctor.
Well, thank you, Francois. What happens is I've been basically, I can say that I've been involved with Chinese, Japanese, and Tibetan medicines for over 30 years or so. And I've been involved in so many capacities, as a student, as a teacher, and as a professional, as a therapist. But in spite of all this involvement with energy healing and Qi and everything, it's not something that I woke up one day in the past, I'm going to be an acupuncturist. Far from that. Although, looking back in retrospective, I remember when I was about 6 or 7 years of age, very, very young, I used to have this recurrent dream. So I used to dream that I had a huge hand. The hand was huge and I was trying to hold the needle. Oh. And because my hand was too big and the needle was so small, that would create a little anxiety. And I start crying and my mom would come and console me. So this went on for I don't know how many years. So I think, I take it there was some sort of premonition, right?
Maybe a message.
A message. But what happens is I grew up in Brazil, in a very small town, but I couldn't relate to anything people were doing in those days when you're studying, choosing a profession, either be a doctor, a lawyer, whatever. I couldn't relate to anything like that. So I love maps. I always love traveling things. So I started studying geography and then move on to geology because I like volcanoes, all these things. But there was a void. There was something missing that I couldn't describe. So I decided to study something that would bring me close to people. I decided to become a lawyer. I studied law, became a lawyer. But at the end of it, it was even worse. The void was still there. I couldn't explain. I couldn't, So not knowing what to do, I saw this ad in a newspaper, Douyin Weekend. For some mysterious reason, I decided to attend the seminar, and that changed my life completely.
In Brazil?
In Brasilia, yeah. There was, for people who don't know, Douyin is a Japanese acupressure therapy.
Yeah.
And for some reason, that short circuit every cell of my brain. And I said, this is it. I don't know, this is it. There's something to it. And immediately after, that's the universe playing its part, I met this old acupuncturist. He was about to retire. And he had studied in Japan during the war, after the war, with a samurai descendant who had to pass his knowledge to him. So he took him to Japan and he became his disciple. And this is the man I met. Immediately after that, he came to me and said, go to Japan. Go to Japan and study acupuncture. So I said, well,
he became
my friend and master kept saying that I was this, oh no, going to Japan was another profession, another thing. I can't do that. But he kept insisting. And one day, immediately, not far away from that, I've heard that the most traditional school of acupuncture in Japan, in Tokyo, was opening its doors for acupuncturists, for foreigners, for the first time in their history. I said, very interesting. But I wasn't quite convinced yet.
Oh.
So I prayed. I need a sign. I need something that shows me that I'm the right direction. And I had a sign. I remember, Francois, I had this dream, and I was in a large room, and in front of me there was this Japanese blue and white porcelain vase, those traditional ones, broken into pieces. Broken, it's scattered as far as the pieces were as far as my eyes could see in front of me. And behind me, there was this voice suggestion, go and assemble it, put it together. Next morning, I got a ticket and went to Japan, and my life changed. It was like, even though I was in a place I'd never been before, I didn't know much Japanese, maybe sayonara or something like that, but I felt totally at home. Yes. I spent some time with a strawberry farm as a student. I enrolled myself in this student exchange. So I stayed with a family in Hokkaido, working strawberry farm, and that slowly was being part of myself. So when I went back to Tokyo, I was kind of ready. So I got involved with acupuncture and the training, everything. But it was a beginning of a journey. And during that time, I was exposed to shiatsu, was my first therapy, and then acupuncture and other therapies and methods of Japanese. But because I was there for 4 years, and I had this, I was fortunate to be involved or directed to masters. So I got to understand more of the Japanese ideas and feelings and the way they do acupuncture, as with everything. So that was slowly molding my path, directing my path. And later on, I went to Germany, studied natural medicine, 4 more years in Germany, and then traveled extensively, and finally went back to Brazil. It was 8 years since I left Brazil, came back to Brazil, and that very man, that very old acupuncturist, he had opened a school of acupuncture
in Brazil.
As his last, in Brasilia, Brazil. And he kept saying, you're going to be teaching in my school. I said, who am I to teach? I mean, I've just arrived in the country. But yeah, I ended up teaching. And finally, he retired, and I ended up with the school in my hands. For 7 years, I run this acupuncture school until it was the time for me to move on. That's why I came to the province. That's why.
So there is a question that comes to my mind. There is quite a difference between the European naturopathic approach, holistic medicine, and the Japanese and Asian approach They are using natural product, but there is a philosophy that is completely different behind. How can you join that in your therapist mind? How can you join these two approaches together?
Yes. One thing I can say, Francois, is when I left Japan, I went to Germany, moved, because I have learned and I've been in that environment for so long, I had the feeling that I couldn't do anything, I couldn't pursue that after Japan. So much so that people would come to me in Germany and say, oh, I've heard that you studied in Japan, I learned acupuncture. I would change the subject. I would change into something different because I thought I couldn't carry that energy that protect me for so long, and I couldn't reproduce that anymore until I arrived in Brazil. When I arrived in Brazil, there was a line of people, especially from my family, waiting for me. So I had to just go with it. But looking back in retrospective, what you said, Francois, most of these traditions, especially acupuncture, Moxibustion, and other therapies, they came to Japan in the 7th century from China and places with Buddhist monks. So the monks brought this to Japan. And in the old days, only you could go to monasteries. The only way you could have access to these therapies by going to monasteries. And it was all these rituals, all these blessings and everything. And in the end, when you got healed, there was the blessing that contributed to that. So that feeling, that philosophy, stayed in Japan even to my days. There's something sacred. There's something ritual about it. Yeah?
Yes.
It's not something so mechanical. So that's the idea.
As opposed to the European side.
Yes, yeah. It's something. Just imagine like a monk, or like a Zen Buddhist monk looking or meditating at like a fountain, looking at the fountain with the water is dropping, or like the stone garden, or nature. Just meditate, observing that. So that's the same philosophy. To give an example, the normal acupuncture, as it's practiced in China in many places, you use strong stimulation. Yeah, so many scholars just say, well, you need the stimulation in order to achieve qi, in order to bring energy to circulate.
Yeah.
In Japan, it wasn't like that. They said, you, as a therapist, you should notice the stimulation, not the patient. It's very subtle. You don't need to dig very deeply because it's not nerves you're treating. You're treating energy. You're cursing energy, moving energy around. So it's up to you to
develop
quite
different, that. It's a quite different vision, no?
Yes. And that was a good thing. So that was what I came to, in the beginning. But when I arrived in Brazil, most of the prevalent acupuncture was the Chinese way. Yeah, a little bit of French, Nogier. So I had to put since I was educating and everything, a little bit on the side in order to accommodate, in order to change things too much. But I kept that to myself. When I came to the Bahamas, not having to abide by that, I rediscovered that magic. So I say, I'm free to go back to my origins. And that's the best part of it, of what I'm doing at the moment, at least at my feeling, my level.
Yeah, so you could navigate through the different approaches, but at least you could navigate to different knowledge and gather the most interesting part of each, and then choose yourself, no?
Yes. Now, looking back in retrospective with more maturity and everything, I realized, Francois, that everybody's right. Everybody's right. Every method is right, provided you have this in you, the desire to help, the intention to heal, the intention to help, the intention to make a difference in somebody's life. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter the method you use. Most important thing that you're doing now is to be present, as we discussed before. Be present, be there, and magic happens.
Yes, I can relate to that very much. Dr. Cairo, I would like to address a little bit the subject of your book called Anger Goes Up, Fear Goes Down, Emotions and the Hidden Link. With what you just said, there is the emotional part of the physical ailment. So can you talk about it? What is the link between the emotions and the physical ailment? Because it's not obvious for Occidental people. Occidental people used to see a tumor, an ulcer, and treat the ulcer. And with your approach, there is a different explanation. Can you talk about that?
Yes. Francois, I had to, when I arrived in Brazil, back to Brazil, and I started slowly, I'll open my office. Something important happened to me that changed my whole trajectory, my whole understanding. As if something was waiting for me, as I said. My very first patient, or maybe the second, but I remember it's maybe my very first patient. It was a lady from Canada.
Oh.
A lady from Canada, from French Canada. And she came to me. She had this pain in her thigh, in her leg. This pain was there for so long, and she had gone through all kinds of therapy. As always, acupuncture is the last resort. So what else can I do?
Yeah.
So this lady came to me, my newly opened office. And then, okay, I started applying my acupuncture here and there, you know, as I would. But then this lady started crying. First sobbing, gentle, but it was increasing, crying, and all of a sudden I was crying inside myself because, oh my goodness, I managed to hurt my first patient. I'm not going too far with this.
What a drama.
So I removed the needles quickly and let her go, cry. And I say, oh my goodness. But to my surprise and amazement, the following morning she was there. She came back and luckily she wasn't crying anymore. Actually, she had a smile on her face. And I said, what happened to you? And then she told me that on the very night, the night before, she had this dream or nightmare. She dreamed that she was in this big ship, a black ship, and she was being whipped constantly on that part of her body, on her leg. And with that, it was just lots of feeling of fear, anger, hopelessness, lots of feeling coming up in the dream while she was being whipped. And then she woke up and the pain was gone. Totally gone, disappeared, no trace of it. Now, when she came back and told me that story, I didn't know what to make of it because basically at that time, even though the Chinese have explained in details about what emotion does to you, I had no idea in terms of experiencing myself. So I came to the conclusion.
In the clinic context, you mean?
The clinic context. So I realized that, yes, I have to quickly change my view of things or expand or enlarge to know that there is an emotion, there is a feeling that is asking for attention. It's like it wants to be heard, want to be manifested, and it stays there, sending messages to you until you listen. This could be a pain, this could be some different kind of comfort. But once you address it, whether it's acupuncture, massage, whatever you want, and then the reason for that pain, that message to be there disappears. So that changed the whole view in everything. And I started paying more attention to emotions and feelings behind the problem. That's to say, if somebody came to me with a headache or migraine headache, whatever, I would look for the emotion behind that. I would just say, what is the energy behind that feeling? And I kept looking at that and pursuing that and accumulating knowledge. So at some point, I started traveling, teaching seminars, but people would come to me and ask, is there anything written about that, what you're saying? Is there any book or something? I didn't have anything, so you can have my notes. if you want to. But then I was forced to put this in a book. It's not, I call it just a manual or something, as if I'm talking, that
Yeah.
describes what emotion does to you.
Yeah. So you came out with that. Something that inspired me a lot when we met Cairo in Montreal was how does organs, according to Chinese traditional medicine, what organ stores emotion. For example, in Chinese traditional medicine, we know that liver stores anger, that lung stores another emotion like
Sadness.
yes, sadness, etc. So can you talk about that? Does it connect to this approach, what you're talking about, or
Yes,
is it?
very much. This was the foundation, the basis, which I elaborate upon. The Chinese say that they take the emotions very seriously. There's a form of energy, but like like energy in general, energy is supposed to flow. Just flow like a wind that comes and shake the trees and move on. Yeah? And this is healthy. It's how we manifest ourselves. This is how we manifest our humanness, by experiencing emotions. But sometimes a certain emotion stays with us for so long, it becomes almost like a second skin or a diver's suit. You cannot see that. And that's if your emotion is not resolved. If the emotion is stagnate, as the Chinese say, that's when you begin to experience some problem. And with this understanding that each emotion is an organ, for instance, as you said, anger is connected to the liver, affects the liver, injures the liver. Elation, it's not joy as they say, but elation, exaggeration of joy can affect the heart. Worrying affects the spleen and the stomach. Sadness affects the lungs, and fear affects the kidneys. So we know that if a state of emotion, let's say fear, for so long, for too long, you would end up affecting how your kidneys work. Let me give a practical example.
Yeah.
Let's say somebody who has sadness, like for instance, in Chinese medicine, the lungs are very much associated with the immune system. So much so that the thymus gland is in this area.
Yeah.
A couple, they're being together for so long, they married together for a long time, and one of them passed away, and the other one stays behind. It's quite common that soon enough, this person will develop some problem, will develop some issues, and quite often they end up dying as well. So in the Chinese perspective, it's understandable because sadness is congesting the qi, is congesting your immune system. It makes you prone to whatever happens to you. Also, look at the body's language. You never see somebody say, I'm sad, with the
Yes.
stretching.
Of
You
course.
always say, I'm sad. It's constricting, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So that constricts your energy. That stagnates your energy in your chest. This is one thing. The other one, let's talk about fear, for instance. Fear affects the kidneys.
Yeah.
So if you find somebody in the sheer fear, you know that in the Chinese, the energy goes to the kidneys, and the kidneys are responsible for opening and closing the urethra. Yeah, so you end up wetting your pants when you're in sheer fear.
Yes.
That's when my book came about. The anger goes up, fear goes down, because anger makes the energy of the liver goes up. It goes up. You never see somebody say, I was so angry, I lost my foot. You never hear somebody say that. I lost my mind. I was so angry, went up to my mind. So is it ascending? So it's a liver thing, it goes up. And so, and then fear makes the opposite. It makes your energy go down, sinking. That's why you wet your pants and everything. That's hence the name. Anger goes up, fear goes down. But if I would say, Francois, the most damaging emotion that we have is fear.
Yeah.
Because fear is very paralyzing. You cannot see somebody again moving, say, I'm afraid or something. It's very constricting. It's very contracting. And this happens, it affects your energy in so many ways, especially in view of what's going on at the moment.
Yeah, I was about to say, we live in fear right now. We are in the middle of a pandemic, no? So there is a big impact on the world's, I would say, the humanity. Everybody on the world are fear, living in fear,
Yes.
no?
Yes, and that's one of the things that I'm concerned about. Because basically, there is one thing we call in Chinese medicine, it's Wei Qi or Wei Qi, which is defensive Qi. We all have that. It's what we call the blueprint, the energetic blueprint of the immune system, but it's more encompassing. And it surrounds the body, protects your body during the day and at night, and changes things. But one thing, one feeling that affects how this Qi circulates is fear. So as long as you have ways of dealing with this, your immune system can thrive. Your Wei Qi will protect you. But a long-standing fear, it would affect your energy. It would affect how you breathe, mind you. Because in Chinese medicine, breathing is not to do only with the lungs. It's an interaction between the lungs on top and the kidneys in the bottom. So how things circulate. So if the kidneys are affected, this circulation doesn't happen very well and makes you prone to more problems. So just to say that if there is an emotion, we should be always watchful, always concerned, is fear, panic, and everything. Now, the beauty of everything, Francois, there are things you can do about it.
Yes, of course.
Not very complicated. And the same thing I was telling you, this in the body language of being contracted. One thing that I normally recommend my patients and people is whenever you find yourself in a situation thinking about, especially what's going on at the moment, and you feel contracted, you feel constricted, all you have to do is to go the opposite way.
Of course.
Outstretch. Open your arms, open your limbs, open your legs as far as you can do, as far as you can go. Stretch, 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 and start breathing deeply and slowly.
And then the energy will start to flow again.
Start to flow again. Because this is natural. You have, I call the inner physician. We all have one. You have one, I have one. We all have this inner physician inside ourselves that is always watchful, is always telling you what to do. And when she or he perceives that something is not quite right, he would let us know. To pain or discomfort, we'll call our attention, send a message. But the beauty of everything is, if the telephone is ringing and you answer, there's no reason for the telephone to keep ringing anymore.
Yes,
okay?
Of course.
So once you take some steps towards healing whatever is happening, as simple as it's just stretching, breathing, you have a very powerful ally, which is your inner physician.
So with our body language, we can influence the circulation of energy, and that leads me to jump to my next topic, which is the mudra, because I've learned the mudra, but you were the first one that explains it in a very simple, clear way. So first of all, can you explain what are the mudra? Because these are physical way of placing the fingers, the hands, and I am using myself when I'm healing the Kerachi mudra all the time. It became an automatism because I put the tongue on the palate systematically. But can you explain what are the mudra and how do they impact in the energy circulation, and how does it impact mainly in the healing of the practitioner? How does it work?
Absolutely. Francois, besides, I would say go back to, besides the muscles of the face, the hands are the part of the body the most express our feelings, the most express our emotions. You see, if somebody has gentle gestures or peaceful gesture, this shows the peaceful heart, according to Chinese. The hands are extension of our hearts, according to Chinese. If you have somebody tense or tight, this shows there's something also, the same thing going on in our hearts. So with this philosophy, in Hindu tradition, Ayurvedic tradition, they're known that certain positions, certain postures with your hand, you can bring about healing in so many levels. Now, with my research, I realized that if you look at the brain, our body is very wise. The connections of the brain is wired in a way that it allocates more space in your cortex than the brain for important tasks that we have. Okay, so if you have something that's not so important, you occupy just a little bit of space of your brain. Okay,
Yeah. Yes.
but if you look at the space that is allocated for your thumb to begin with, for the fingers and hand, it's huge. That means the brain considers our hands, our fingers, our thumb as very important. Look at the babies. The babies, when they're beginning, when they come to this life, they seem to be mesmerized by their fingers in the cradle. Have you noticed that? They seem to be looking. And the pediatricians and people that study children know that by working with their fingers, especially thumbs, develop their brain, helps them develop their, right? So back a little bit, this is what we know now. My story, when I went to, after I studied Japanese medicine and Chinese, I felt there's something else that I need to expose to. I need to learn about Tibetan medicine. And
you did learn that also, no?
Yes. So while I was in Japan, way back, I knew about it and I wanted to incorporate that. I was very curious about it, but it wasn't. I knew that they have a special time. They have a special courses for foreigners. So I wrote in those days and asked when it's going to be happening. I would like to be part of one, but then nothing happened. So many years. One day I got this letter. I was in London, actually. I wasn't home, saying next year in April, there's going to be a course, Tibetan medicine for foreign for therapists. Please come. That was huge. You know, I jumped off my seat. Well, wow, this is a dream come true. So I went, organized. I went to Dharamshala, where the Dalai Lama lives, where the Institute of Tibetan Medicine is located. And I spent almost a month there studying intensive Tibetan medicine, which is amazing. Because in my view, Francois, when you go to places, especially far away, as you are at the moment, for three main reasons. There are three main reasons that make you do that. One, to connect. One, to disconnect. And the other one, to reconnect. You reconnect with something's being part of you.
I relate to that.
Right? I see from your smile that you can.
Very much.
Yes. So I was there looking and studying, and I noticed, I started paying attention to everywhere in the school of the University of Tibetan Medicine. There were some deities, Buddhas, and all with the different postures, with the hands, movement. And as you know, Buddhas, you know, the healing, they all had one.
I'm in Sri Lanka. It's a Buddhist country, so I cannot miss it.
I was going to say, this is very much part of your life, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
But I was very intrigued. I was very intrigued beyond the beauty or the expression of the artist, whatever that was. Why is this always like that and different ones? So I finished the course, but there's something that I always wanted to do, which is to go to Ladakh. Ladakh is the, some people don't know, it's the Indian Tibet, the Indian aspect of Tibet, which is untouched. It's beautiful. The monasteries are there. So I just spent 1 week there, just myself and a driver. It was the beginning of the season. It's early springtime. It was very cold, and I was just myself. So I came to Ladakh, I landed in this beautiful biblical-looking place. And I remember the very first night I went to my room and I was unpacking, looking at my suitcase, and I was looking for something. I think it was a plastic bag. And when I opened a zipper, my suitcase, out came a book, MUDRAS, a booklet, small book, MUDRAS. I said, what is this? What is this book? And what is this book doing in my suitcase? All the way from the Bahamas. I had no idea what this book was doing there. I don't remember having bought or whatever. But anyway, I started browsing it. It was fascinating, fascinating. Put it back, went to sleep. Well, what happens is, in the middle of the night, I woke up and sat and was sitting in bed with wide eyes. And all of a sudden, everything started making sense to me. I said, that's it. Because all of a sudden, I could see the mudras from the Chinese medicine background with the concept of meridians. And everything started making sense to me. Because this is not just a form of meditation, but this is a healing tool. But so then I started developing. This became a workshop that I brought to Montreal.
Yes.
At the Maryland, I don't know if you remember, in a while. It was my
That's why I'm questioning you about that. I remember clearly.
Yeah, so I got to Montreal, and how my first time I showed this was in Montreal, and
really?
I got such a nice feedback that it became later on now become a book. Now it's a book about mudras
that you wrote.
And but basically. The idea, Francois, is that by doing certain mudras, some postures you do with your hand, you can bring about certain healing, certain elements of healing in your body. And it's not something in your mind, or is this in your mind? No, it's absolutely, it's very objective. You do certain postures during a certain time or as long as you need, and that brings about healing in a very easy way.
Yeah, well, if I may, I would like to share something about that. Because after this workshop, I came to Sri Lanka a year and a half later, right? And I was healing. I will share a video about that to you. I was healing a mute lady. She is totally mute since 25 years or something. She lives in a slum, and her husband are undereducated, right? So while I was doing the healing, the husband was having one hand, the left hand on the heart, and the right hand, he was doing like that. He was projecting in front of the wife. And I went to ask him, what are you doing? He said, I don't know. And I kept asking the question 2 or 3 times. I will share the video with you because there was someone that filmed that part. It's a miraculous healing, but he was projecting the energy towards the hand were like this, simply. And he was projecting the energy towards, and I was completely convinced that he participated actively to the healing, because after this first session, this lady started to speak again for the first time of her, not entire life, but since she was 8 years old, she didn't speak, so imagine. So for me, that was like magic, because he didn't know. He was just putting the hands and doing like this. So I always thought he's practicing mudra.
Fabulous. That's a very powerful one.
Yeah.
If you don't know anyone who do this, this is connect your brain. This is connect to the high. This connect to the infinity. This connect to spirituality. It's a very powerful one. And I would love to hear more if you have in the future, if you want to share your experience there, because you are in the place.
Yes, I will share that very soon. I will share that with you very soon. You will be amazed.
Beautiful.
Because
yeah.
After the first session, between the first and the second, they had 3 sessions altogether, and not very long. Actually, I didn't know what I would do, because there is no protocol for new people? No, I have no idea. And after between the first and the second session, the husband told me, she started to speak. She said her name. She said, I'm feeling fine. She started to speak. The second night that she came, the husband said, at 8:00 p.m., there is no light, there is no electricity. It's a beach slum. So they make a fire at about 7:30, 8 p.m. and on the beach. And she started to sing. And she never sang of her entire life. And the third day, they came again, and he said, now I'm angry at you. I said, why? What's happening? He said, well, right now, she speaks and never stopped to speak, and she steals my mobile phone. They have a very cheap mobile phone. And she speaks to...
Well, beautiful, Heather.
Yeah.
What a beautiful story.
Yeah, that's
Thank you for sharing with me.
I will share the sealing video. It was not supposed to be shared, but right. So fastly, we'll jump to the last subject I wanted to talk is the Feng Shui, right? It's moving energy in spaces. So you are healing spaces, not only patient, but you're healing the houses and the spaces. Talk about what you're doing with this.
Francois, Feng Shui came to me later on in my practice because in many ways, in many situations, I came across, like say, a situation where the patient will come, will have a treatment, got better, and then went back home, things went back to what it was before. So it was like in many cases, this yo-yo. Until the clinic got better, went back home, got worse. So in that case, I said, what is it that's happening in the person's environment? Or what is it that the person is doing that is affecting this? So my first idea was to ask the person to describe the surroundings. So what is it that you do or something? Even to draw the environment. And the next stage would actually ask the person if I could pay her or him a visit to actually go and see what's going on. So I have a case also there that it was very meaningful, as it always happened to me. There's a case that triggers everything.
Yes.
This lady, she had an ongoing arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, all over her body. And she was having treatment at my clinic and everything. She was doing okay, but went back home. And whenever she went home, things would be worse. So I asked, can I visit? Can I pay you a visit? So I went to her home and I saw that everywhere, especially corridors, areas, there were clutter, paper, things piled up all over. You couldn't move very easily. There was always obstacles. I said, I knew something about Feng Shui. I knew about when I was studying, but that was interesting. So I said, tell you what, I would like you to clean all the debris, clean your space, get rid of clutter, and let's see what happens. Let's leave it like that. So it won't take too long, so maybe 1 week or something, things change dramatically. Oh. The pain disappeared, the discomfort disappeared as she proceeded to clean everything. So that shows there is an impact, a very strong impact on your surroundings, because the Chinese say your energy, your external energy mimics what's going on inside and vice versa. Yeah? So that when I started, just to say that what led me to study or to practice Feng Shui was for therapeutic reasons. So ever since, I normally, every time I'm or an office, even movie, a cinema or movie theater, it's just to assess how the energy is flowing. And there are ways of just moving things, adding things to the place that can make your energy function better, which brings joy, brings movement to your life. Let me give you an example that you're going to relate to. Say You've been looking for a house to live, to rent or to buy, and you've seen many houses and nothing affects you, not very happy with everything you see. All of a sudden, you see this one. This one, you say, this is the one. I like it. Or you go to a place you've never been before, a hotel or any place, you feel totally at home, totally comfortable. Or somebody say, Francois, welcome, choose a seat, please sit down. You choose this chair, that chair. And then the question is, why? Feng Shui. Because when the Feng Shui is harmonious, it relates to your energy and you feel much, much, much better.
Oh.
In the old days, the origins of Feng Shui had to do with crops, plantation. They want to make sure that the crops were happy and beautiful. And also the ancestors, the graveyard, they want to make sure that the ancestors were happy in their graveyard. To bring, they do not get angry, the family, you bring prosperity to everybody. That's how everything started. But nowadays, there are three main centers of Feng Shui. One is Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Malaysia, Singapore.
Yeah.
So that's when they even, all the buildings, every time somebody's building something, before they bring the architect and the engineer, they bring the Feng Shui master.
Yeah. That's a very interesting thing, especially that we can apply to the healing aspect. That's very inspiring. Cairo, time is running. I just wanted to know, what are the upcoming projects? Do you have any upcoming project? Do you want to write another book? Do you have any other studies? what are you? Project?
Well, what happens is, of late, I say one year ago, I've been feeling some sort of stagnation. I've been doing so much for so long, and it's like a horse that has been running around. There's no grass. I've been feeling winds of change, and I say I would like to do something there. So my idea now is I'm working with frequencies. Research how to raise your energy, how to bring about healing, to erase your frequencies or to improve your frequency, and also doing like online consultation or using videos. That's why what you're doing today is new to me. It's perhaps one of the first ones. I guess I was a bit reluctant for so long because the idea I need to be present, but I know now I can use this wonderful vehicle. So this is my new project, to be use more internet and things.
Yeah, well, we have quite no choice right now due to the epidemic situation. I think you are not alone. We are going to do like this. Many healers, many therapists are going to do like this, either to teach or to do their work. So, well, Cairo, thank you so much. I mean, it could go on and on and on and on. I thank you very much for sharing this knowledge and this wisdom with us. And I am quite sure that you are going to continue discover new era, and you are going to find new grass. I am very much, I am not scared. I think that you are going to find a lot of grass and feed others with it.
Oh, thank you very much for your words of encouragement, Francois. As I said, one thing that I inspired a lot, I'm very happy about, is to see your enthusiasm. Enthusiasm means God within. So you have that. And by sharing with everybody, the opening of space, you're affecting so many people in so many beautiful ways. Thank you very much for having me in your space.
Thank you very much, and hope to see you soon. Okay?
Likewise. Take care, Francois.
Take care. Goodbye.